Good morning, Aloysius. Good morning, Dr. Alo.
Excellency, Monsieur Gabriel. Good morning, Dr. Alo, Patricia.
Bonjour, mon frère John.
Vous allez bien?
Bonjour, Aloysius.
Voilà. Okay. Bonjour, Patricia.
Bonjour, monseigneur, ça va?
Dr. Alo, good morning.
Par la
I'm
grâce
sorry.
de Dieu.
La grâce de Dieu, ça va.
Dr. Benedict, good morning, sir.
Dr. Alo, we don't hear you.
Sorry, okay, sorry. I was
Now we can hear.
mute.
Now we can hear Dr.
Now it's
Benedict.
okay, yeah.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, good
Doctor.
afternoon. Brother.
Good afternoon, Dr. Alo. I missed your commission today. I came too late.
Yes, we missed you too. Yeah, you
I
could
tried
not be
to-
with us.
I tried to join you, but I think it was too late. I came at 10:35, so I could not. I think it was over already.
Yes, we ended timely.
Yeah. Good morning, Adriana.
Right. Good morning, I think.
everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Sheila.
everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. I think we should start. It's already a few minutes after the hour. It's 2 minutes after the hour, the starting hour. Is everyone okay if we can start now?
Yes, please.
So before I even introduce myself, I'm going to ask you to please make sure that your microphones are switched off all the time. Well, good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to these celebrations of Caritas at 7. And this time around, of course, is for the Caritas Africa, Caritas Regional Africa. My name is Sheila Pires, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon or this morning for some of you. Thank you so much for being here with us. It is a very special occasion as we build up to the commemorations of Caritas at 70. But before I carry on, I'd like to ask Mrs. Marta from Caritas Internationalis to just give a few words before we begin with the actual order of the day. And thank you so much for being here. Welcome to everyone. Monsignor Gabriel, Mr. Aloysius John, Mr. Albert Mashika, all protocols observed.
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sheila. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. This is the fourth webinar organized by Caritas Internationalis on the occasion of its 70th anniversary. As we remembered in the latest weeks, on December 12th, Caritas Internationalis will mark its 70th year of experience, and we wanted this occasion to be a moment of witnessing, and we wanted the entire confederation to participate. And this is why in these 7 weeks leading to our anniversary, we organized one webinar every week, giving the floor to one of the 7 Caritas Internationalis region. We already host webinar of Caritas North America, Caritas Europa, and Caritas Oceania. And today we are very happy to organizing this webinar with Caritas Africa. And I just remind you that this webinar will be held in both in English and French, and there will be translation simultaneously in also Spanish, Italian, and French or English. So I remember you also that if you would like to find more information about the next webinar and also of the other initiatives that Caritas Internationalis is promoting for its 70th anniversary, you can find it on our website, www.caritas.org. Thank you very much. And I'll give now the floor back to Sheila to moderate this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Marta Petrosillo from Caritas Internationalis. Thank you so much for addressing us. And welcome once again to this Caritas webinar entitled Caritas Promoting Social Justice Through Sustainable Opportunities and Building Communities Resilience. Welcome once again. I'll now like to welcome His Grace Gabriel Justice Yo Anokye, the Metropolitan Archbishop of Kumasi in Ghana, and Bishop President of Caritas Africa, to please give us a brief reflection and an opening prayer. Please unmute yourself, Your Grace. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Am I okay now?
Yes, you are. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, my dear sister. A blessed morning to all of you, brothers and sisters in the Caritas family. I would like to make a brief reflection in 7 points. We are having this webinar in 7 regions. 70 years is 7 times 10. So I'll make a brief reflection in 7 points, and I'll add an opening prayer. Point number 1, we wish to thank the Lord for the 70 years of the existence of Caritas Internationalis, the Confederation, in all its members. Psalm 90 verse 10 says, our lifespan is 70 years, 80 for those who are strong. The lifespan of human beings, humanity, any institution, from this Psalm 90 verse 10 is a blessing when it reaches 70 years. Beyond 70 years, more blessings. And so we thank the Lord for the 70 years of Caritas Internationalis and all its members. When Israel was sent to Babylonia in captivity or slavery by Nebuchadnezzar, they spent 70 years in Babylonia. After 70 years, they were freed by King Cyrus. After 70 years, we are freer. We are more empowered to serve beyond 70 years. Point number 2, 70 years of Caritas Internationalis simply signifies that it is the Lord who has done it. And so hosting this webinar, the 4th, by Caritas Africa, gives us the greatest honor and joy to accept to host it and to bless the Lord with all of you. Headship, membership, our fellowship, our sponsorship, and all beneficiaries, well, sisters and brothers who enjoy God's benefaction, God's assistance through Caritas. 3, 70 years of witnessing and serving the poor, the most vulnerable, the needy, the sick, the afflicted, the dejected, the rejected, the homeless, the unemployed, the refugee, the orphan, the widow, the stranger. The list is inexhaustive, but it is the Lord who has given us this opportunity to serve all those in need. It is a testimony. It is an act of witnessing indeed. Point number 4, our celebration of these 70 years will equally offer us the opportunity to remember and pray for our founders, initiators, originators of Caritas Internationalis. It will give us the opportune moment to pray for our sponsors, our benefactors, our donors, those who offer us legacies and assistance in various forms to be able to serve those who are in social, economic, and cultural injustices and situations of oppression. Point number 5. These 70 years will also give us the opportunity to appeal all the more to all those who have been helping us. It will be a sign of what Pope Francis calls fraternity and social friendship in his latest encyclical, Fratelli Tutti. Point number 6. The 70 years of Caritas Internationalis will give us the opportunity to work in union still and for further development with all our sister partners and agencies. It will help us to work together to fight climate change, conflicts, and other worldwide pandemics like the current COVID-19, recently Ebola in some parts of Africa, but also not to forget the almighty malaria and other contagious and infectious diseases touching lives and livelihoods. My last point, number 7, is to offer a prayer, therefore, for the 7 regional webinars to end successfully, to offer a prayer for all the 7 Caritas regions that will be hosting the webinars, to offer a prayer finally for our Holy Father Pope Francis, who is the #1 Caritas personality in the church, to offer a prayer for our president, His Eminence Antonio Cardinal Tagle, and all his collaborators in all countries in the world where Caritas is active. And so I pray that the Holy Spirit will bless the start of this webinar to inspire us to bring it to a successful end. The Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you very much, my dear sister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Grace, Gabriel, for that prayer and for highlighting the 7 points in commemoration, of course, of the 70 years of Caritas. We now give the floor to Dr. Aloysius John, the Secretary General of Caritas Internationalis, who will be addressing us on the topic promoting social justice through sustainable opportunities and building communities' resilience. Mr. Aloysius John, thank you so much for being here with us. The floor is yours. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Sheila. Your Excellency, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends of Caritas Africa. This is an important moment to give the voice of the region, to let the voice of the region be heard loud and strong at the international level. And this voice is the voice of the poor whom we are serving, whom we are serving. Before I proceed any further, I would like to express my deep solidarity and also the solidarity of the Confederation with Caritas Ethiopia for the Ethiopians today who are living the worst moment of their lives in terms of humanitarian disaster, in terms of suffering. Our prayers are with you, and I hope there will be a quick and a relevant solution to the problem. Regarding the subject of promoting social justice through sustainable opportunities, building communities, resilience, Caritas in Africa have played an important role in promoting integral human development in highly challenging socio-political context during the past decades. The purpose of their mission has always been promoting social justice through different kinds of projects initiated at the grassroots level. The title of this intervention is quite appropriate because it brings to the forefront 4 key concepts which are logically interrelated. They are communities, resilience, sustainability, and social justice. This is precisely what Pope Francis also is pushing us to reflect upon. And these 4 concepts also form the basis for integral human development because they contribute to build human capital, both individual and collective. As it is said in the gospel, we can say, take your mat and walk. The person is empowered, through building social capital. I want to introduce my presentation with a key presumption that community organization is a basis for sustainable development. When individuals are organized, made interdependent with one another in the community, and made to become aware of their collective existence, then we can say that the foundation for sustainable development has been laid. The different experiences in the development field undertaken by Caritas in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Oceania bring to evidence that development to be sustainable, it has to be community-based and collective. Developing community capital is all about enhancing access to information. We saw this during the COVID-19 response, acquiring coping capacities, and also capacities to resist collectively to external pressures, and above all, developing a community of interest that will enhance social harmony. This is undertaken through community organization process, which brings together individuals, leading them through a pedagogical process of creating interdependency, and ultimately giving them a community of interest wherein there is unity of purpose. To illustrate this, I would like to start with an example in Kenya, in the Diocese of Nakuru, which I visited 4 years back along with Caritas South Sudan. 3 communities in a village composed of around 15 to 20 families, each were organized by the diocesan Caritas as a response to settle disputes for having access to water from a source. These communities were organized, trained, and given the necessary awareness to develop a unity of purpose and learning to live together with a shared vision. 2 years later, after they were formed, these 3 communities became interdependent, both within the community and also with the other 2 communities among themselves, and got engaged in small-scale income-generating programs, community agriculture, etc., thus engaging themselves on the road to collective development. Kitchen gardening, agricultural projects, cow and goat rearing, cultivation of local medicinal plants, all form the basis of collective existence and community sharing, leading to a cooperative for milk, which was also organized by themselves. Progressively, they're moving towards more autonomy at the community level. In this example, we see how community organization became an opportunity for social harmony and development. Once the communities are formed and made aware of their problems, they are ready to move towards autonomy. They are empowered to understand the need for collective liberation. And this is precisely what Caritas has been doing over these decades. When these communities start becoming aware of the collective force, they have acquired the capability, as Amartya Sen says, to anticipate, cope, and adapt to new events. The community capital becomes a source of development, and the communities have the capabilities to manage and recover in an effective and efficient way from the impact of adversity, all kinds of adversities, including political. It is here we can observe how community resilience is achieved and how the communities are learning and developing new structures as unexpected events take place instead of only maintaining existing structures. They are able to adapt themselves. They do not stay with their own problems, but make common problems of the communities make common problems as a common means to act collectively. It is here we also see that the development of communities is relevant to the notion of resilience. And without building communities, resilience will be a challenge. Communities play a dual role. They become the context, which serves as the driving force for resilience, and communities are also agents of change, which reflect community resilience. Once the communities are capable of taking action to respond to challenges and are capable of fostering resilience, then they head towards sustainability. The case of the above example, the three communities work with the conviction that nobody should be left out, and a natural spirit of solidarity has been established, leading to their sustainable existence. These activities lead to equality and equity within the community and among the communities. And the idea of social justice is nurtured and lived both individually and collectively. Sharing mutual accompaniment, idea of common good contributes to promote social justice, which aims at giving equal opportunities for each and everyone in the community. The resilience capacity gives them the inner urge to define a common future for themselves and for the generations to come. And this leads them to sustainability, on the road to sustainability. Based on the example of the project in Nakuru, we can see the importance of establishing community strengths that encourages a resilient environment that ultimately leads to established natural solidarity, and through this established social justice within the community. Once the community strength is built and they are empowered to develop a collective capacity of facing adversities and forming resilience, the development process becomes sustainable because it is the community that drives the process, and through this social justice is established. To conclude, from the different experiences of Caritas, we observe that development activities must be people-centered and collective to enhance their resilience collectively. This in turn contributes to community resilience, which is indispensable for sustainable development and establishing social justice. But the challenge that lies ahead is how to seize the opportunities for promoting people-centered projects and making those who are beneficiaries of projects become right holders, subjects of the development activities who must be empowered to become resilient. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share these few ideas. And again, I wish a real discussion and reflection in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Aloysius John, the Secretary General of Caritas Internationalis, giving us the keynote address. We now move over to South Sudan, where we'll listen more about the humanitarian interventions by Caritas South Sudan. And to do that, we are joined by Mr. Joseph Pasquale Sabu of Caritas Sudan. Mr. Joseph, the floor is yours. Mr. Joseph, are you here with us? All right, I'm told also that Mozambique is struggling, is having some technical issues, struggling to connect. So perhaps we can proceed to our next speaker who will...
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, this is Gabriel. Let me check on Joseph. This is Gabriel of Caritas. Let me check on him. I think he's facing difficulties. Maybe I'll ask him to come here.
Okay. So whilst Gabriel checks on Mr. Joseph, I think we can move on to our next speaker, and then Mr. Joseph will catch up after that. And so we'll move on to the partnerships to promote women and youth leadership during disasters in Africa region. As I said before, Mozambique is also experiencing some technical difficulties, so we'll come back to them once they've been able to connect. So I'd like to welcome now Ms. Maryanne Muriuki, the representative of the African Union Youth Advisory Board. Are you here, ma'am? Gabriel, your mic is on.
Yes, yes. Joseph is here. Let me give him a floor to do the presentation.
Okay, then. In that case, we go back to South Sudan as per the order of the day. So let's welcome Mr. Joseph from South Sudan.
Thank you, Sheila, His Grace, Gabriel Justice Yao Anokye.
Thank you.
The Metropolitan Archbishop of Kumasi in Ghana, President of Caritas Africa, Dr. John Aloysius, Secretary General of Caritas Internationalis, my brothers and sisters in the respective 7 regions of Caritas Internationalis, all over the planet Earth, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
Good morning.
I convey the greetings of our Lordship, Bishop Herculano Ladu, President of Caritas South Sudan, and the entire management at the national office and at the diocesan offices as we mark the 70th anniversary of Caritas Internationalis. As I proceed with my presentation, and as we mark 70 years of this anniversary, it's time for us also to recall the good work that has been done in 70 years, and also to reflect and to examine our conscience in terms of our responsibilities in terms of social justice and building community resilience. Without further ado, my presentation will run as follows. The humanitarian context in South Sudan, a brief background on Caritas South Sudan, our areas of intervention, sectors of intervention, our humanitarian strength, opportunities, challenges, and how conflict is linked to humanitarian work, and finally, the way forward. In regards to the humanitarian context, I also take an opportunity to apologize as we are in globalization and under information technology, we also have problems to connect. So accept our apology. South Sudan is a country that has experienced effects of hazards. That includes flood and conflict. You are all aware that South Sudan is also in the international radar or in the international limelight in terms of humanitarian responses and humanitarian crises. We follow countries like Syria, Yemen, and Ethiopia of the late in terms of humanitarian crisis and human suffering. That is manifested in forms of war, inter-ethnic fighting, and floods. South Sudan is going through a slow pace in implementation of the revitalized peace agreement, undergoing challenges, especially in the unification of the army, and some groups have not signed to the peace agreement. South Sudan is also part and parcel of the world, and we are also affected by COVID-19. As I speak to you, the total cases stands as of today, 12,622 confirmed cases, and 113 death cases in South Sudan per the Ministry of Health update. South Sudan has been one of the most dangerous and difficult areas for humanitarian response. In South Sudan, we have lost 128 humanitarian workers who have been killed on their line of duty since 2013 per OCHA update. And I also take my opportunity at this stage to pay our tribute to all the fallen humanitarian workers. Local actors in South Sudan, as I'm discussing now, are petitioning the government and international agencies for meaningful partnership between the internationals and the nationals. Given the situation in South Sudan, we have more than 363 national NGOs and 114 international NGOs. You can imagine the space is really shrinking in terms of funding, in terms of competition. It's worth noting also, the government of South Sudan has contributed 10 million USD towards the flood affected people in South Sudan. Caritas South Sudan also participates in the cluster system, and Caritas South Sudan receives weekly UN OCHA humanitarian bulletins. With recent updates related to the flood affected people, 780,000 people have been reported as flood affected. 294,000 have been provided with assorted food items. 310,000 reached with wash support, and more than 250 with shelter materials per September to October update by OCHA 2021. Caritas South Sudan, as member of the Confederation, responds to different sectors. That includes food and livelihoods, shelter and non-food items, peace building and reconciliation, health, education, and WASH. I will take this opportunity also to remind you that the sectors I've mentioned, some of them have been inactive. That includes health, education, and WASH. I would like also to do a bit of justice, social justice, to Sudan Aid. Caritas South Sudan was established in 2011, but originally Caritas South Sudan started earlier in 1972. So I would like to just to update you that Caritas South Sudan was in form of Sudan Aid, though it was in the form of disguise because the government in Khartoum was pro-Islamic policies and could not allow or accept the name Caritas. That's why the name Sudan Aid was maintained. And Sudan Aid is also worth to be thanked for the good work it has done for the Caritas family. I, as a presenter, is one of the beneficiaries from Sudan Aid. Sudan Aid managed to sponsor more than 4,000 students for graduates and first degrees and bachelor and diplomas in Sudan. Besides health, emergency preparedness, peace building. Humanitarian responses, looking from the social perspective, is more about humanitarian assistance, and humanitarian assistance is actually social justice. Access to flood affected and conflict affected people is also an aspect of social justice. Delivery of humanitarian assistance, targeting of people based on their needs and respect of the human person in terms of his dignity are all examples of social justice. Accountability, both downwards and upwards, also represents social justice. Besides participation of the people we serve, not only to leave them as passive beneficiaries of aid, but their participation and their engagement remains imperative in our work as Caritas. Caritas is also involved in safeguarding, especially in the area of environment, in the area of gender, and in the area of child protection, HIV and AIDS. As I speak to you today, in the next week, by the 24th and the 25th of December, Caritas, the National Director and the Diocesan Directors will conduct a 2-day workshop on Caritas South Sudan policy on safeguarding. Caritas has a strength. Due to the interest of time, I will just try to mention 2. That is the capacity development strength and operational strength. Caritas has received a number of trainings, especially in various areas, in the areas of program, especially in monitoring and evaluations, in the areas of finance, in the areas of sphere standards, procurement, disaster risk reductions. And in the area of operational, Caritas enjoys very wide parish networks countrywide in all the 7 dioceses. And as a Caritas family, that's one of our strengths. All what I've said in terms of interventions, in terms of all the good work that Caritas has been doing did not come from a vacuum. Caritas South Sudan has implemented 7 emergency appeals, 1 protracted crisis appeal, that is a PCA, and there are a number of them from EA 12, EA 19, EA 23, EA 01, EA 02, EA 27, EA 01, and of the late EA, which is actually the PCA 04, which ends this year in 2020-21. And Caritas has also served more than 150,000 people in the last 11 years. And Caritas has also received funding more than, let us say, by an average of 70,000 per year. So if you carry out a quick calculus, you can look at really the huge investment Caritas has done. Caritas was also not left alone. Caritas received solidarity visits from members in the region, Caritas Africa. Caritas also received support in terms of projects like the REX projects for resilience building that was championed by Caritas Africa, Caritas Korea. Caritas Internationalis humanitarian department also played a pivotal role, especially in sending in emergency response support teams, sending in CI coordinators to assist the national Caritas. And Caritas also received a number of support from CI, Institutional Development and Capacity Strengthening Department in terms of institutional development and capacity strengthening. Caritas receives and also has opportunities. Caritas is a member of the NGO Forum. Caritas has opportunities, especially with the South Sudan Humanitarian Fund. We are members of the cluster, whereby information sharing and best practices are shared at the cluster levels. Caritas also has an opportunity with the presence of diplomatic missions accredited to South Sudan. Caritas enjoys fixed assets in all the 7 dioceses in South Sudan. Caritas also enjoys the opportunity to tap to Caritas working groups. And Caritas also has an opportunity to be a member of Caritas Internationalis and Caritas Africa. We are not free of challenges. Caritas goes through challenges. One of the challenges to mention is limited capacity in resource mobilization. That remains a challenge. Caritas lack pre-financing capacity. And pre-financial capacity remains very crucial, especially if we are accessing EU funding. Without pre-financing, EU funding will be very difficult for Caritas to access and serve humanity. South Sudan has national non-governmental organizations also operating in South Sudan, plus international organizations who are faced with difficulties of funding. Local actors are restricted, and there are a lot of bureaucratic pitfalls to access humanitarian funds, especially the South Sudan Humanitarian Fund. It's very clear, if you have 363 non-governmental organizations and 114 international organizations, you can imagine how difficult it is to access funds in South Sudan. Conflict will remain, and there are many consequences of conflict: death, destruction of infrastructure, displacement, and disruption of decision-making mechanisms at all levels. Peace building remains an important development concern that addresses root causes and triggers of conflicts in order to maximize and minimize violent conflicts. For the interest of time, I will look to the way forward. We need to end perpetual poverty in South Sudan and in all our regions. To end perpetual poverty, we need to continue to address the root causes of the conflict and the triggers of conflict. Caritas should move towards mapping and identifying funding and capacity gaps in South Sudan. We need to link the national office with humanitarian stakeholders. That includes the United Nations, UN agencies, donors, the diplomatic missions accredited to South Sudan, ACT Alliance, and other international organizations. Community engagement remains key. Resource mobilizations and funding development, given the vast land we have in South Sudan and the land owned by the church in South Sudan, Caritas South Sudan stands as a very potential service provider in terms of providing facilities like conference halls and a number of facilities for the huge investment in terms of humanitarian assistance that is in country. So as a Caritas family, what can we do collectively to tap on the huge humanitarian investments in country, which seems to be evaporating from our hands? Finally, His Grace Gabriel, Aloysius, Dr. John Aloysius, my brothers and sisters, we take this opportunity to thank all the founders of Caritas Internationalis, to thank our donors, and to thank people of all goodwill in allowing us to attend to the need of the people who are suffering and working towards building their resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, South Sudan. That was Mr. Joseph. We spoke for more than 10 minutes, but thank you very much.
Este informe que ha durado más de 10 minutos, pero igual le agradecemos.
Okay, I'm going to ask Romero to please mute your mic, Romero. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we proceed. As mentioned before, Mozambique is unable to connect, and so we have Miss Maryanne.
Mozambique no puede conectarse. Tenemos a la señora Maryanne. Perdón.
Romero, your mic is on. I'm going to ask you to please mute your mic, Romero.
Sorry. I don't know what's.
That's all right. Okay. So as I was saying, Miss Maryanne Muriuki will now join us and talk to us about partnerships to promote women and youth leadership during disasters in Africa region. She's the representative, of course, of the African Union Youth Advisory Body. Miss Maryanne, thank you so much. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. And please note, you have 10 minutes before we can have some interactions with all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping to share my screen as well.
You may go ahead, Martha, and the team will allow you to do that.
Fantastic. And I do apologize in case there's internet breakages. We're having poor connection here in Nairobi. And thank you so much. I was called to give a short presentation on partnerships to promote women and youth leadership during disasters in the Africa region. And I make this presentation on behalf of my colleagues, 14 of us at the Africa Youth Advisory Board on disaster risk reduction. And I'll start with the women in emergency and disaster situations. And we all know that women and girls face greater vulnerability and exposure during disasters. And they have demonstrated actual and potential contributions to DRR, disaster risk reduction, as first responders during disasters, and also their central role during in community resilience or in building community resilience to disasters and emergencies. However, we still note that the role of women and girls is still undermined by the fact that their role and their tapped potential in terms of resilience, recovery, and reconstruction strategies when it comes to community building and community resilience. Coming to youth, we note that children and youth under the age of 30 make up more than half of the world's population. And in Africa, the population under the age of 24 years is more than 60%. And this means that youth benefit most from disaster risk reduction and reducing the impact of disasters and emergencies, as well as the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals. However, we have noted that their contributions are making a difference. I'll speak about that later. But however, their potential is not fully utilized. I'm going to share the best practices in youth and women leadership in disaster risk reduction in the African continent. And I'm going to talk about the Gender and Disaster Risk Management Platform that was established in May this year by the African Union and the African Risk Capacity, which is a specialized agency of the African Union. And I'm happy that the gender lead for ARC, the Africa Risk Capacity, is here online by the name Antoine Boroto, and they are based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And on the platform, women can share their stories of resilience, insurance when it comes to disaster risk management. And you can get in touch with Antoine. Maybe he can share his or their contact on the chat. This is another new network that has joined recently the social media. This is the African Women in Disaster Risk Reduction, which is promoting women voices in policies and strategies in the implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030. You might want to follow them and see what kinds of partnerships they are looking for. Coming to the Africa Youth Advisory Board on Disaster Risk Reduction, this board was established in May 2019 by the African Union Commission. And so far we have carried out COVID-19 advocacy campaigns in 4 languages. That was last year on the outbreak of the pandemic. We translated messages from English into Kiswahili, French, Arabic, and Somali. And this is one of the reports that was published last year by our Côte d'Ivoire ECOWAS colleague that focused on youth engagement on COVID-19 for the Africa We Want. And in one of the research, that's where we came across Caritas Africa when we were doing a survey on youth engagement in disaster risk reduction policies in the Africa region. And we are very grateful to Lucy Espila for her contributions. And once the report is out, we are going to share. And currently also IAB is contracted by UNDP to carry out a study on youth interventions in DRR and COVID-19. Please allow us to reach out to you when we get in touch. A sister group to IAB DRR is the Africa Science and Technology Advisory Group. And this is mainly scientific, that provides a lot of advice scientifically and technically to the African Union Commission, regional economic communities, and member states of Africa for the implementation of the Sendai framework. And this is a standout case when it comes to women and youth in DRR. In one of our surveys, we came across Ms. Dorcas Manga, who's a young woman, a rural woman, and a youth also, who in 2018, there was a plane crash at the Aberdare ranges of Kenya. And Ms. Manga led the Kenya Scouts Association in the search for the missing plane. And this search exposed the vulnerability of the community around the region, that they didn't have much information when it came to disaster and emergency preparedness and response. And Ms. Manga on her own organized a training for the community members, around 300 of them. She went ahead to establish the Nyandarwa County Disaster Management Unit. And last year, they were able to offer relief, disaster relief in terms of COVID by providing relief supplies to affected regions. And there was also a landslide in their area. And this disaster management unit was also able to respond. I'm going to call on the considerations in promoting women and youth leadership during disasters. As we are now in the implementation of the Sendai framework, we've shifted from disaster response, which was mainly disaster management, into risk reduction. That is why we have disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management, because when we prevent, we avoid a lot of losses rather than responding to disasters. We're also talking of inclusion when it comes to women and youth, and that the fact that we should not leave anyone behind. And we're also calling for multi-sectoral approaches in disaster risk reduction, and also the integration of indigenous and local knowledge DRR policies. And when we talk of youth engagement in DRR and youth leadership, we are also moving away from the old-fashioned way of rigidness, and we are also allowing creativity, innovation, and play when it comes to DRR. And at this point, Sheila gave me 10 minutes. I hope I was able to meet the deadline or the target, and I didn't overstep. And I wish to thank you for the kind invitation. Thank you so much. I am available until 2:05 East African time, because we have to hop out again to the Africa Regional Platform happening here in Nairobi. Thank you so much, Sheila, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maryanne. Thank you so much for highlighting the role of women and the plight of women and youth, of course. I'm told that Mozambique is back online. We should be having a session now for some reactions from you, but if you will permit me, I'm just going to allow Mozambique to quickly join us before they experience another technical difficulty. So Mozambique will be talking to us, or rather Caritas Mozambique will be reflecting on the response to Cyclone Idai and the violent extremism in parts of Mozambique. We're talking about the north of Mozambique. And to do that, we have Mr. Santos Gotine from Caritas Mozambique. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Santos. Are you ready to proceed? I'm assuming that's Mr. Santos. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes.
You have
Good
10
afternoon.
minutes.
How are you?
Well, thanks,
Yeah,
you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the delayment. It's because we're having a board meeting and I have to also cover that. Yes. So I greet all of you, and Caritas Mozambican was called to share a bit about the our intervention in humanitarian assistance, especially the emergencies that arise after some disasters. I mean, cyclones, floods, etc. Mozambique, you know, that is situated in a position, a geographical position in which among the Southern African countries is the one that suffers most with disasters. To recall back just a very short, from 2020, from 2000, we have been having constant flooding, starting from 2002, 2003, 2007, 2013, and 2015. So we consider flooding to be the most disaster affecting Mozambique, followed by cyclones. We recently had a major cyclone, Cyclone Idai and Kenneth. Idai affected the central region of Mozambique, specifically the diocese of Beira, Chimoio, Quelimane, and Kenneth affected the diocese of Pemba. So to say, when we responded, we had to ask CI to launch an appeal. First was the response appeal for 3 months. Then we had a recovering appeal, EA 1519 and EA 33 2020. So for us to respond efficiently, we measured our capacities and we saw that we wouldn't respond alone, wouldn't manage because of the dimension of the disasters. So we called the CI to call for a member organization who could support us technically, and CRS came in as our facilitating partner. In order to coordinate well the intervention or the implementation of the measures, we also had in place here in Maputo in our national office staff from the emergency team from CI, and of course the national office. In my person, I coordinated all the partners who came to support Caritas Mozambicana. And there was another level also of coordination, which was from the national office to the diocesan Caritas who were implementing. The Secretary General, the directors, the diocesan directors, the decision makers at the local of disaster. This was another level of coordination because of the level of decision making that this staff have. Then at the implementation level in the field, we had also the humanitarian officers who were leading all the teams. Of course, we had an appeal where many CI member organization contributed, and for the EA 2015, EA 15-2019, this was fully covered because it was more than 2 million euros. But now the continuation, which is the EA 33 2020, we had only the coverage of 35% of the total budget, which stood by 1,600,000 euros. It is unfortunately to announce that in May this year, whilst the EA 33 was being implemented, we lost Antonio Anoso, who was the humanitarian officer in Caritas Mozambique. This was a great loss for us. In fact, may his soul rest in peace. Now we have another situation in Cabo Delgado. The whole world knows that in Cabo Delgado, there's this gas which was discovered, and many international companies are going, and some they're already there, and then there was a rise of this insurgency. And these insurgents, they are attacking communities. They've displaced more than 800,000 people. And as I speak, 3 weeks ago, I was in Cabo Delgado. I went to visit some interventions of our colleagues, and in fact, who revealed that this situation was a serious situation, and this was the bishop who was there, Don Luis, a Brazilian bishop, who afterwards was promoted by Pope Francis and sent back to his country, and now is in his country. So to say that now the situation in Cabo Delgado is that the Mozambican army, supported by the SADC army and the Rwandese army, they are fighting the insurgents, and some areas have been recovered. But those people in the settlement camps, they are still doubting if the insurgents are really being defeated, taking the decision of not going back now because it's still early. They think that maybe our situation will be like in Afghanistan. So this is what I wanted to share with you. If there's any question, please.
Mr. Santos, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and our condolences on the passings of your colleagues at Caritas Mozambique. And we also take this opportunity to express our condolences to Caritas Eswatini and Caritas Imbisa in general. Well, the time now, it's exactly 2 minutes past 1 Pretoria time, and that would be 2 minutes past 12 in Europe. So we have a couple of minutes, that's about 15 minutes, to have some reactions from you. So feel free to raise your hand should you have questions for either Mr. Santos from Caritas Mozambique or the previous speakers. A lot has been shared about the works of Caritas throughout the region here in Africa and the world at large, but especially here in Africa. So should you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll give you the floor. Well, my first question goes to Mr. Santos, just to ask you, how are you dealing with the humanitarian crisis, especially in provinces like Nampula, Nyasa, where the level, or rather the number of internally displaced people has increased?
Yes, in these provinces, we have dioceses like Cabo Delgado, we have Pemba diocese, Nampula is Nampula diocese, Nias is Lishinga diocese, and these dioceses, they have the local Caritas. What we did, in March, we had the partners, we called for a partners meeting to share some views concerning the intervention to support the displaced people. And what was agreed that most of the partners were going to fund directly this diocesan Caritas. Of course, some funds came through the national office, and then we supported and we coordinated the activities that were taking place in the field. The bishops also from the northern region of Mozambique, they are supporting a lot of Caritas because not only financially or materially, but they go, they visit, they go to visit the displaced people, and some religious community, religious congregations, they are also working with the local Caritas. So this is the strategy that we set in place in order to respond effectively Of course, we are also coordinating with other UN agencies, other NGOs, and the government, because the government is the one that coordinates all the humanitarian action.
Thank you very much. I see Gabriel from Gabriel Justice, rather. That is your Grace, Gabriel Justice. You've raised your hand. You may ask your question.
Thank you, Sheila. I want to thank all the speakers and have a little question for clarification from Joseph and perhaps Gabriel, South Sudan. Joseph, my brother, good morning again. I heard that 120. Thank you, Joseph. In your presentation, while thanking South Sudan, you said 128 humanitarian workers have been killed since 2013. I'm very sad. We pray for their souls, but how were they killed? If you can say that on air, an accident, by insurgents, by terrorists, how were they killed? And I beg you, how are you surviving in the midst of 114 NGOs? Thank you very much, Joseph.
Joseph and Gabriel, you may answer the question, please.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you, Sheila. Your Grace, as I mentioned earlier, the context in South Sudan is volatile. And your first question about the number of humanitarian workers killed, how were they killed? Most of them were killed by armed groups. Others were killed due to ethnic issues, because in South Sudan, we also have ethnic tendencies whereby people from regions, one region will not like others from the other regions to come and work as experts in their areas. So because they feel that people coming from other regions will deprive them from employment opportunities so that they don't get gainful employment. Then the other parts or the other aspects of death was actually attributed to, in most cases, people who are armed, and as I said earlier, people who are armed, and we all condemn the killing of humanitarian workers because it remains as a war crime, and it's also a crime against humanity. No one has right to take life. Gabriel has stepped out, and then the second question is about the number of international humanitarian agencies in South Sudan. It's a huge number. And as I said earlier, the competitive space is really shrinking. So you can imagine, even our CI member organizations at times are facing difficulties in accessing funds. There are occasions whereby some of our CI member organizations also failed to receive grants. So it's really a challenging environment. And I was also throwing the questions to our fraternity, to all Confederation members. This is a situation at hand. How do we collectively get a niche inside and function as a family? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Your Grace.
Thank you very much for that answer. As we've been hearing, it's quite evident that Africa as a region has quite a number of obstacles and difficulties, not only from disasters, natural disasters, but also insurgencies in different parts of the continent. And this makes the work of Caritas even more vital presently. And so if there's nobody else with questions, I would like to ask Mrs. Patricia Adèle Felicite who is the representative of the Caritas Internationalis Women Forum and Caritas Africa Regional Commission. A lot was said also, of course, about women and youth and how they are vulnerable during disasters and how they are trying to empower themselves and have a space where they can be heard. But without any further ado, let me welcome Mrs. Adèle. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Maybe it's a good afternoon in some region. I'm Patricia from Caritas Mauritius. I'm so glad to be with you today. And as a representative of women in the Representative Council, it's a real pleasure to hear my colleague here in Africa, in the region. And just to put the emphasis that we are only 3 women directors on the 46 country in the region. But women and youth, how we hear, are really working very hard on the field. And we got an opportunity in last March during the Women International Day to hear about the resilience and all the work that the women are doing as frontliners. And I think our confederation, Caritas, we are celebrating the 70 years of Caritas these days, but Caritas has really come forward for the leadership and the participation of women, to put them in the light, because our church is really very rich of the participation of women. So during this webinar, I am very glad to hear about what our colleagues is doing. And I will really want to put the emphasis of what Aloysius told us about, the emphasis on the community organization, because our people is in the community. And if we work, and the work that Caritas is doing with the community is the way to come forward for promoting social justice, resilience, and sustainability of our society. And this will make change for people, for the youth, for girls, and for the poor. And this work of Caritas is really something that is changing the world. I really appreciate also what our sister from the youth and women is the paradigm shift of the work of Caritas. Today, we are not just responding, we are preparing, we are working on risk reduction, preparedness. And I think that if we want our community, our people, and our organization to succeed, is really to empower each and everyone in the community, our own members, and all the workers. And I know that Caritas Africa is doing a lot of capacity building throughout the continent, and even the Confederation all over the world is doing many capacity building for inclusion, for in a very multi-sectorial approach, so as to really shift from responding, but to be proactive and to come forward with risk reduction and also proactive leadership in the church and in Caritas. To come back to the women committee, we have actually a group of 12 women from the 7 regions of the world, of the different regions in Caritas, in the Confederation, who is working on a plan of action of how to come forward with and how to make it happen that all these valuable work that has been doing by women and girls through our different organizations on the field can also be we can see that also in like governance community, and we can forward to give more space to women in leadership. So that's what I wanted to highlight today. And I think that we have many things to do again, and we will come forward with all the plan of action that we will share with the members organization, so as to really everyone working together for social justice and resilience of our community.
Mrs. Patricia, thank you so much for those words. Thank you. And of course, we also thank Caritas for following in the footsteps of Pope Francis in promoting women within the organization. It's great to see that, one of my favorite topics. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, a lot was said about disaster risk reduction, and that was one of the key issues, or rather the key topic of the recently concluded Imbisa workshop, which took place here in South Africa in Pretoria. And a lot was said about this. As we've heard, Africa really needs to step up when it comes to disaster risk reduction and, of course, other sectors. But thank you so much for sharing this with us, Mrs. Patricia. Of course, she is the representative of the CI Caritas Internationalis Women Forum and Caritas Africa Regional Commission. I'd like now to welcome Mr. Albert Mashika from Caritas Africa Regional Coordinator to give us a closing address on building sustainable economic models towards resilience. Mr. Albert Mashika, the floor is yours. We can't hear you. Please, you need to connect your audio. Let's see. Your audio is not connected. You're not on mute, but your audio is not connected. We still can't hear you. So just waiting for Mr. Albert Mashika to connect his audio. Still can't hear you. I think you need to go to the audio settings and connect your audio. Just a reminder that members of Caritas Imbisa are in South Africa. There we go, there we go. We could hear something now.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. You may go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. We are dealing with some technical problems, yeah? But we are able to fix
I'm going
them.
to ask Galaxy A7 to please mute. Mr. Albert, please unmute yourself.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, all right. So you are speaking as Galaxy A7. You may go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Sheila Pires, for giving me the floor. First of all, I would like to say big thanks to His Grace, Gabriel Justice Anokye, who is the Bishop President of Caritas Africa. Obviously, he is the Metropolitan Archbishop of Kumasi in Ghana. I thank also Dr. Aloysius John, the Secretary General of Caritas Internationalis, and the entire team of Caritas Internationalis General Secretariat. I thank all the presenters from Caritas Africa member organizations. I have in a special way, I have to recognize the presence of Ms. Maryanne Muriuki, who represents the African Union Youth Advisory Board. I'd like once again to thank all the participants from the Africa region and also from other regions of the Confederation, because I have seen Dr. Benedict Di Rosario from Caritas Asia. And I'd like also to thank the interpreters for the work they are doing when we organize the meeting with this review. The reflections of the Bishop President has already insisted on the reasons we need to celebrate the 70th anniversary of Caritas Internationalis. Now I'm going just to highlight why we need as Caritas Africa to build sustainable economic models towards resilience. When we go through the profile of the Caritas Africa in humanitarian issues, you will see that his profile of risk is characterized by floods, locust infestation, drought. That is currently the case in Kenya, in Angola, and Madagascar. We have also earthquakes. This is particular in the eastern part of Democratic Republic of Congo. We have also conflicts and insecurity. This can be observed in Sahel countries, Ethiopia, Mozambique, and also in eastern part of DRC. In all these cases, diocesan and national Caritas members are doing work in the ground. They are, in many cases, the first ones to respond to the crisis happening or affecting African countries. Caritas members are facing numerous challenges. Among these challenges, we can mention one, their access is very limited to funding. This cannot help them to sustain their operation. Global depending donations and grants from abroad. This has also an impact on their autonomy, and this also is impacting negatively the nature of their organizations and also their interventions. Members are also facing the rising cost of hiring competent staff, maintaining the staff in their teams to meet program inputs. This strains their limited resources. And according to the picture I have from Caritas Africa members, in some national Caritas members, at the national level, we have 1 or 2 staff only. How can 1 staff or 2 staffs be able to animate the entire network of Caritas in the said countries? The main issues is related to the salary costs, which are still very difficult to raise. National Caritas members, for us as the regional secretariat, they are the entry points to diocesan Caritas members. And we need to support the national offices of Caritas in their respective countries so that they can play their roles in terms of capacity strengthening of diocesan Caritas members, advocacy at the national level, and also providing advices, professional advices to the diocesan level. Last year, we conducted a study on humanitarian localization. And this study has revealed that there is an increase in engagement with faith-based organizations. However, she's down and fails to recognize the existing challenges faced by these entities at the grassroots levels. What are the next steps? But before talking about the next steps, let me remind that Caritas is an instrument of the bishops for the service of charity. Member organizations are doing lots of work on the ground, and it is inspiring to hear how much they have achieved despite their limited resources. This year, for instance, despite the challenging circumstances, we have managed to physically engage with numerous member organizations through several meetings we held in Africa. Let me mention the case of Addis Ababa, where we had a reference group meeting of the advocacy. And then we met in Lome in Togo in the frame of approach program. And then we went to Kigali to attend the African Week of Microfinance, and we took that opportunity to launch a new project of Caritas Africa on promoting ethical finance. And now we are here in Imbisa region, precisely in Pretoria, where we held a training of the members in disaster risk reduction and advocacy. And then we organized an induction session to encourage them, to invite them to engage on the implementation of Caritas Internationalis management standards. And today we are closing a workshop with an evaluation of a capacity strengthening, a project we started in 2017 with 4 Caritas member organizations. We learned the stories of change, but we realized that there is a need to build stronger organizations. But these organizations be also sustainable for the work they are doing in the field of charity, as the mission has been entrusted to them by the church. Now, the 2 steps. The first one, next year, in 2022, Caritas Africa is planning to deepen discussions with its member organizations on how to strengthen their organizational capacities to mobilize resources, both externally and locally, to train their staff and also to maintain the staff in their teams. In order to effectively respond to these disasters and fulfill our mission, we need sustainable and stronger organizations in the Africa region, and we can only attain this with the collaboration with all of us, the participation of all of us, the support of all of us. How do we build community resilience? We cannot reinvent the wheel. There is a link which will be provided to you to see the 6 foundations for community resilience. First one, we need to envision the future of the communities we serve and undertake or elaborate measures to accompany them in building their resilience. In order for them to absorb any form of disturbance, whether natural or man-made, and retain their basic function and structure. 2, we need to encourage systems thinking to understanding the complex interrelated crises now unfolding, such as the COVID-19, and what they mean for our similarly complex communities. 3, a community that adapts to change is resilient, but because communities and the challenges we face, they're changing every day. We need to cope with the new situations. We need to adapt to the new situations. This means that adaptation is an ongoing process. 4, we need to promote transformative changes. Caritas must be engaged in activities that are leading to transformative changes. 5, community resilience is not tenable if it serves only us and only now. It needs to work for all the communities of future generations and the ecosystems on which we are dependent. It is the case for the forest of the Congo River Basin in the Central Africa. 6, as individuals and as community, we need courage to confront challenging issues, engage in dialogue through and continue to take responsibility for the change we deserve. Thank you for celebrating this occasion with Caritas Africa, the land of hope. Thank you to Caritas Internationalis for being with us in this celebration. And thank you again to all the participants to avail yourselves for this celebration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albert Mashika, the Regional Coordinator of Caritas Africa. Thank you so much for addressing us. But before we do our closing prayer, before we have the closing prayer, I would like to invite once again Mrs. Marta from Caritas Internationalis. I believe she has a few words to say before we do the closing prayer.
Thank you, Mrs. Sheila, and thank you everybody for being here today with us. We really listened to strong and powerful witnesses, the one of Caritas Africa region and the different member organizations, and they contribute to our work in the region. Just to remind to all of you, the next webinar, which will be held next week on next Tuesday, November 23rd at 2:30 p.m. Rome time. And next week we will go to Latin America and Caribbean to know more about Caritas work over there. I also remind all of you that we decided to link this webinar to a concrete gesture of solidarity. And for this webinar on the work of Caritas in Africa, we decided to support the work of Caritas Mozambique. And which we listened today, there's really a lot of struggle in daily work, not only in Mozambique, also in other countries in Africa. And so for everybody who wish to support this project, you can find more information on Caritas Internationalis website, www.caritas.org. Thank you very much. And Mrs. Sheila, the floor is yours again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Martha from Caritas Internationalis. And of course, we are very happy to hear of the good news that Caritas Mozambique will continue to receive assistance. Thank you so much. But we are now coming towards the end of this webinar where we are marking the 70th anniversary, or rather celebrations of Caritas. And so to do our closing prayer in French will be Dr. Jonathan Ravat, the chair of the Caritas Africa Catholic Identity and Institutional Development and Capacity Strengthening Reference Group. So Dr. Jonathan Ravat, if you may, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Sheila. L'Afrique étant aussi francophone, il convient donc de pouvoir apporter une petite parole en français, et qui plus est, en termes de prière. Nous sommes réunis au nom du Père et du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Amen. Seigneur, éternel et tout-puissant, Dieu de Jésus-Christ, Père, je veux te rendre grâce, gloire et louange pour ce que nous avons vécu aujourd'hui et ce que nous sommes à vivre, ce que nous continuons à vivre à l'occasion des 70 ans de Caritas Internationalis. Je veux te rendre grâce, gloire et louange pour Caritas, son cheminement pendant 70 ans, son réseau international, ses missions à travers l'Église et à travers le monde, ses intuitions du début, ses objectifs d'aujourd'hui, ses visées de demain. Intuition du début, objectif d'aujourd'hui, visée de demain avec le pauvre, auprès du misérable, face à l'exclu, au service du petit, au nom de l'évangile de Jésus-Christ qui nous révèle Dieu crucifié, agonisant, misérabilisé. Je veux te prier afin que nous, Caritas, ni dans les faits, ni dans les perceptions, nous ne soyons vus que comme un service d'église, que comme une option dans un éventail, qu'un tiroir dans une armoire, mais qu'au contraire, nous, Caritas, nous soyons le visage même de l'Église, le reflet du peuple de Dieu. Je veux te prier pour ce peuple de Dieu, appelé par le pape François à marcher ensemble en synode, afin que par notre baptême à tous, sacerdoce commun qui réunit laïcs, prêtres, diacres, religieux, religieuses et évêques, chacun, chacune et nous tous ensemble, nous réalisions que du simple fait de notre baptême, nous sommes tous membres de Caritas. Nous sommes tous Caritas. Caritas n'est ainsi pas une petite option réservée à des retraités ou à quelques privilégiés appelés par le curé. Car notre vocation baptismale, par elle, nous sommes tous prêtres, célébrant les sacrements, prophètes, annonçant Jésus-Christ, Fils bien-aimé du Père, et roi, serviteur des autres, particulièrement des pauvres, des faibles et des petits. Finalement, Dieu notre Père, je veux te prier pour le monde, pour nos sœurs et frères autrement chrétiens, autrement croyants et de bonne volonté, pour la terre et pour la création, afin que dans une écologie intégrale, embrassée par ta présence, embrasée par l'amour que tu es, nous, Caritas, chrétiens et citoyens du monde, nous puissions continuer à être artisans de ta paix, hommes, femmes de ta volonté, et fassions de cette planète que nous aimons un petit morceau de ton royaume, miroir de la Trinité. Je te le demande, au nom de mes frères et sœurs de Caritas, tous ceux qui nous regardent, tous ceux qui sont liés à nous, tous ceux qui participent à cette fonction, je te le demande et je te prie, au nom de Jésus, le Christ, notre Seigneur et Sauveur bien-aimé, qui vit et règne avec toi, Dieu le Père Tout-Puissant, dans la communion de l'Esprit Saint, un seul Dieu, Trinité, maintenant et pour toujours, pour des siècles des siècles. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Merci beaucoup, Dr. Jonathan. Thank you very much. All right, so we've come to the end of our webinar. Thank you so much to all the Caritas representatives that were here. Thank you so much to you, Lady Grace, Gabriel Justice, the Bishop President of Caritas Africa. Thank you so much to everyone that attended, and we wish Caritas all of the best in its work in serving the poor and the most vulnerable. And so with that said, we've come to the end of the webinar. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Happy Christmas in advance.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Sunny.
you. Merci.
Dr. Sunny.
Yes, Your
Long
Excellency, Bishop.